Hey, what's up everybody? It's Ryan Turley here. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. I've got to be honest with you, brisket is one of my absolute favorite things to smoke. And I've been out to Texas a couple times in the past year, went to some barbecue spots, picked the pitmaster's brains, and here we are with some new tips. So let's get right into it. First things first is meat selection. I picked up this full packer brisket from Costco. It is prime grade and about 18 pounds. One thing that I'm looking for is a really thick flat end. This is the best looking flat that I could find. It's got a nice thick section here and I'll probably end up trimming this section off. Next, you want to see that it has a good bend to it. Let's get into the trim. We've got a 6.5-inch boning knife, flexible boning knife from Victorinox, and this is my go-to trimming knife for any large cut of meat. These are running about $4 a pound right now, which is a lot cheaper than they were a few months ago. So this brisket is partially frozen. I threw it in the freezer for about an hour. That just helps the fat harden up a little bit and it makes it a lot easier to trim. We're gonna have a lot of fat trimming, so I'm gonna collect it all in this, save everything for beef tallow. Right away, this right here is just gonna burn up in the cook, and I really do want a symmetrical brisket. I'm just gonna take a good portion of this off. Obviously this has to go. That has exposed the point side. This side is all the point, and down here is gonna be the flat. I'm separated by a big chunk of fat right here called the decal, and that runs all the way through these two pieces here. Let's see what we're working with. Got this gray band here. This comes from the packing process. I'm gonna trim all of that off, get a look inside of the brisket, and see exactly what I am working with. Pretty much all fat that we just took off here. For now, I am gonna focus on this front side, and I'm gonna work on all this fat here on the top, silver skin. So the best way to get this fat off is I take my glove hand here and I work underneath it and I raise up the section that I'm trying to cut off, and it makes it a lot easier to get my knife under there to get that silver skin off. Here's another loose piece that's just gonna burn up in the cook. So I am gonna end up rounding all this off a little bit later, but I might as well just get started now on this cut. Working my knife underneath, clearing the fat from one side, and then the other. I'm now gonna focus on this decal, this whole band of fat here. I'm gonna take most of it, or if not all of it, out. This is what separates the flat muscle from the point muscle, which wraps around over here. And this is really, really hard fat. It doesn't chew well. Some people don't trim their briskets at all, and by all means, do you. But this is how I like to trim my briskets. Now you can see the clear separation between the flat, the decal here, and the point muscle, which is a much fattier piece of meat, sometimes called the fatty, and this is called the lean. A little bit more of this gray band off and this whole fat section here off the point. And I am going for an aerodynamic shape. I want the smoke to just roll right off of this thing. I don't want any divots or bumps or puddles forming. Here's all the fat that I've taken off so far, and none of that is gonna go to waste. All right, this top side's looking about as good as it's gonna look. So I'm gonna flip this over to the fat cap. So all this grizzly stuff right here, I do wanna take a good amount of that off. Again, that's gonna burn up. I just want a nice clean edge here. 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch of fat here. We've got a little bit more fat on this side, so I am gonna trim it down. So now I can see this point muscle right here, and you can see all that marbling. It's much fattier than the flat that runs in this direction. Again, I'm taking a little bit more fat off the point because it is fattier, and I do plan on making burnt ends out of this, so I want every bite to be fantastic. I've left the entire fat cap on the flat, which is a leaner or drier side. Sinew and cartilage right here. This is not a good bite of barbecue at all. Very fibrous. Taking all that off. I think I might take a little bit more out of here. This is really hard fat. Next, we're gonna season it. We are gonna use a binder for this brisket. I'm gonna do a 50-50 pickle juice and mustard binder. We're just gonna eyeball that. And I am smoking this fat cap down. So for seasoning, when you hear Texas barbecue is just salt and pepper, that is true, but today we're going with some seasoning salt, which is basically MSG. About a 50-50 seasoning salt and coarse black pepper blend on this brisket. The smoke flavor is gonna take over, and that's really the main flavor that I wanna be pronounced on this brisket. See how high my shaker is? You're gonna get a more even coat the higher up you are. Just using my other hand to catch any of this falling off, and I'll just pat it into the side here. It's already looking beautiful. This is the coarsest pepper I have right now, about as good as we're gonna do today. I'm putting this on tonight. It's about 12:30 right now. I would expect this to be done in about 14 to 16 hours with a 2-hour rest. Coarse ground black pepper. I'm pretty stoked on how this trim turned out. For me, this is a good one. Brisket's on behind me. I threw it on about 1 a.m. last night, and it's been about 10 hours. It's almost to about 150 degrees internal, so it's not quite ready to wrap. So I'm gonna dice up some of this beef fat from the brisket trim last night and throw it in this cast iron skillet onto the smoker for some beef tallow. Let's go. So the reason I'm chopping this up is I'm just gonna get more surface area and it's gonna render faster the smaller I dice it. So if you've never cooked with beef tallow, it acts a lot like a high heat oil. So it's a great cooking oil for vegetables, potatoes. I'm gonna throw some of this tallow on the brisket before I wrap it, use it with eggs. It's amazing. We're gonna throw this on the smoker at 225 right next to the brisket, and it should be rendered or partially rendered within about an hour or two. Whatever tallow I have, I'm gonna throw onto this brisket during the wrap. Beef tallow, rendered beef fat. Just a simple strain here is gonna do it to get us that liquid gold that we're after. All right, let's pull this beautiful brisket off the smoker. This smells absolutely amazing. All right, so this brisket is not finished cooking yet. The flat is temping around 165 and the point is a little hotter at about 175, 180. So I'm gonna separate both of those muscles straight down the center here through the decal. I'm gonna wrap up the flat with beef tallow, wrap it in butcher paper, and finish the flat separately. Then with the point, I'm gonna cube this up and add some butter and barbecue sauce for Brisket Burnt Ends. This is a barbecue delicacy. Nothing else that compares to Brisket Burnt Ends, in my opinion. Here is the point muscle, beautiful flat that we're gonna keep cooking with some beef tallow wrapped in butcher paper. I'm just gonna Bob Ross this butcher paper. And I'm not gonna pour this on. It's gotta be delicate. I wanna maintain this bark. And there's our present. I'm throwing this back on the smoker until we reach an internal of 200 to 203 degrees Fahrenheit. Now for the point muscle. Just look at this already. It's almost ready to eat as is. That looks beautiful. Nice looking smoke ring, incredibly juicy. And now we're gonna cut this into 1-inch cubes for our brisket burnt ends. This right here could be the best bite on the whole piece. This is barbecue gold right here. And some sweet heat barbecue sauce from Traeger. Before we wrap it up. And these should be done in about 60 to 90 minutes, and we'll probably eat these while the flat rests. For the taste test. Fall apart tender. Smoke flavors there. A little bit of sweet heat from that barbecue sauce and that salt and pepper bark. Incredible. We're gonna wait for that flat to finish up and we'll slice into that next. So the brisket is finished. Came up to about 205 degrees internal when I just checked it. I am gonna let it rest here for just a few minutes to come down in temperature before I wrap it in a towel and throw it in a cooler. This looks amazing. It's slicing so well. I actually made a pretty thick piece here. And it's still bending, holding up to its own weight. And when I pull it, it falls right apart. Look at that. Oh wow. Probably could have let it rest a little longer. It's still pretty hot, as you can see the steam coming out, but you know, family's gotta eat. Smoke ring came out great. If there's one thing I would have done differently on this brisket, keep my eye on the temperature. Since I separated the point and the flat, this flat finished a lot faster than I expected. And I also didn't give it enough time to rest as much as I'd like, but overall, amazing, really stoked. Here's another shot of the burnt ends. Came out absolutely amazing. Just falls right apart. Oh, that's amazing. So for the sides, my wonderful wife Juliet made creamed corn, baked mac and cheese, and 1 hour long baked beans. You can't forget some coleslaw. So this is my birthday feast. I'm almost 40 years old and I couldn't be more stoked to be on this journey with y'all. So if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to my channel, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.